My name is Connor Mormon, and I had chapter 23 of Death on the Nile, and the chapter is called The Evidence Points To. And in this scene, it's really where Waro is really kind of like wrapping up all the evidence, showing what, like how the murders happened, what led up to them, and all like the behind-the-scenes action. And so this is a very crucial scene, and so it's when everyone's in like the big room, and everyone's like Waro is the center of attention, and he's just breaking down everything. And so starting out with Waro, I gave him more of a round shape because he's a little bit more plump than the rest of the people. And of course, in the scene he is wearing a suit, which he is throughout much of the movie. And I gave him a bow tie. Originally I made it black, but I thought it seemed too generic. And so I had added the red bow tie to kind of signify that he's the one that is trying to solve the murder. And then also I gave him a hat just to more identify Waro as the one who is the detective behind this. And also I made Colonel Race. I made him more tall and slender. I gave him the bow tie, a red bow tie as well, as he is kind of assisting Waro throughout the scene, or throughout the whole movie. And also I had originally gave him a mustache that was just straight across, but I didn't think it really represented him too well, and so I gave him a more triangular mustache, and that's how Colonel Race turned out. So then Dr. Besner, he didn't really play too much of a big role in this scene. I gave him wide eyes because in the scene, like when he is brought up, he's surprised about what happens when it's revealed that Simon had something to do with the murder. And so generally I just gave him a suit just because that's what he's wearing, and so because he didn't have much to do in the with the scene, I just made him all black and white. And then Louise, I just gave her like a general like maid outfit, and I gave her more of like a slender shape, more of a feminine shape to identify her. And I ended up sticking with that shape throughout for her, to represent her as a female, of course. And I added the ovals because she kind of has curly hair, but I wasn't completely sure how to identify that, and so I just overlapped the circles and ovals to make her hair. Also, I gave her diamond-shaped eyes to represent that in this scene where she is killed, she made a letter intending to blackmail the murderer in order to get money, and so I didn't want to represent it with dollar signs, so I made it with diamonds, which also represents money. Then I gave her like the headband that she wears, or I think that's what I would call it. I made that red to signify that she is one of the murder victims. Then I made Jacqueline. At first I had given her a triangle base, like an upside down triangle base, but that obviously seemed too stable for her. And of course, like many of you have said before, that she is a very unstable character, which she is. And so I represented her with just a triangle that pointed at the bottom. And I added red because she is one of the, of course, one of the main murderers here. And then I just added the black triangle to just kind of go along with the rest of her dress. And I gave her angry eyebrows because in this scene she is sneaking up on Louise and with intent to murder her. And then so in the first scene, this was in Mrs. Doyle's room, and it's when they are looking for just looking for clues in there, and it's when they come across the red ink. And so originally I had just made everything kind of black and white, like it's the room in the background, and Waro is walking through it into the bathroom here. And I had made the nail polish containers triangles like that, and I started to add some kind of shadows in the background just to kind of show that the lights that come into the room and everything. And so I felt that the white was somewhat of an empty feeling in the background, and so I added purple to kind of signify that this is a room where one of the clues is found, and it just goes along with the mystery. So the purple kind of represents the mystery aspect of the story. And so I made these red, the nail polish containers, but one of them was actually nail polish and the other one was red ink. And so I had made the casted shadow of the nail polish, or of the red ink, purple to represent that it is a clue. But I didn't exactly like how they were portrayed in this, and how I had only made white lines to go along with the shadows for the rest of them. And so I made I was looking for a way to kind of distinguish the nail polish containers aside from just the shadows, because one of the containers, the one with the red ink, is actually more empty than the other one. And so, of course, I stuck with the purple shadow as well. And then I took some of the objects out just because it started to seem a little bit clustered, and I added Colonel Race in the background because he is looking into that room once Poirot is kind of identifying what's found in this room. And that's my final for scene 1. And then for scene 2, this actually takes place in the big room with everyone, and I zoomed in on Poirot's face, and the thought bubbles I originally had just coming out of his head, obviously, and they were going to represent what he was explaining to everyone in the room. But I thought that it seemed kind of cartoony and almost like a daydream with the thought bubbles in that shape. And so I made them square so you could kind of zero in on the scenes and have an individual scene in each one itself. And so in the top one, I had started to represent when Louise was murdered, and she is in her room right there, and she's facing us, and I made a perspective scene for that top one there. And I gave her a red headband like before to signify that she will be murdered, and then I added purple in the background because in the main room where he is explaining everything, it's where all the answers to the mystery are coming about, and so I made the room purple to represent that. And then I added Jackie coming into the room. She opens the door because I made the door purple to represent that this is a room where, of course, part of the mystery happens again. It's where Louise is murdered, and I gave her a purple knife as that is a clue as well. And then for the final, for my scene 2, I gave Poirot his red bow tie, and then I made Louise laying on the floor, and I changed the color of the floor to red to represent the murder. And I closed her eyes, and the blackmail letter is in her hand, or where her hand would be. I made that purple because that is also one of the clues that represents, or that is needed to help find the mystery or figure it out. And so for the third scene, I was actually going to make the room itself where everybody is in, but I wasn't really so sure about this perspective that I had on it. And so I made it a little bit smaller, and I started to draw or make the couch on there, but halfway through doing that, I realized that I didn't think it would be the best way to do that. It seemed too open for me, even though the room is pretty open. It just seemed it just didn't seem like it was the right fit for it. And so I just made the angle like there's looking at it straight on, and I made Simon here sitting on the couch, and with his injured leg, I made the cast on there. And I gave it's kind of hard to see on here, but I gave a red outline for his eyes to show that he is one, well, he was part of the murder, and people don't think that he was one of the murderers, but he actually was, and so he knows that, but he's just represented as someone of an evil character, and you can see that in his eyes in the scene. And so I added Poirot in the scene, and I changed Simon's eyes to be looking at Poirot as he is convicting him, or pointing him out, singling him out for the murder. And then I just added a frame in the background just for some scenery. And for the final scene, I added Dr. Besner in the background. And the reason I put him in the back of the couch, he's not actually in the back of the couch in the movie, but at first when it's revealed that Simon was part of the murder, Dr. Besner kind of jumps, he just gets really, he kind of goes off about it because he thinks that there's no way that Simon was a part of the murder. And so I put him in the background as he is kind of backing up Simon at the very beginning, and made his eyes surprised. And I made the room purple again just to complement the last scene. And also I made his wound purple as it was revealed that his injury initially wasn't actually a real injury. And then finally I added the eyes of Poirot purple to signify that he had finally solved the murder. So here's my scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3.
helped in providing the story that you were telling, especially because each character is so distinctly different than the other character.
Thanks.
Can you go to scene 2, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so one good thing, one bad thing. The one bad thing I would say is the perspective in the top thought bubble. It gives us a sense that the room is really big, and we've talked about before how the room's actually very small on the boat. So maybe fixing that might help a little. But overall, the good thing I do like this is a little bit different way of seeing it. When Pro's talking about the past, like thinking about what happened, this gives us a different perspective when it comes to how he thinks about it.
One thing I noticed is for this scene, like, my eye goes straight to the box that's red, and I didn't know if, like, you wanted that to be the main focal point of this or not. So maybe just think about what you actually wanted us to see first, and then go from there.
Okay.
I think while we're on this scene, I'm gonna say something about, like, you don't really need a thought bubble at all because you've got two distinctive things in Poirot. And if you want to make a connection, I take those circles out and simply overlap him to those just a tiny bit.
Okay.
Even if it means you foreground him even farther somehow.
Okay.
So that there's a connection, we know what's going through his mind, but it's not literally, it doesn't need to have a literal connection on there that way. And then there is also, if you consider it, is you could probably visually leave the red one, the dominant one, but not make them the sense that how should I put it? You can overlap it onto the top one so that we see the connection moving around in his head.
Okay, so just make a connection between the two scenes.
And him,
Okay.
yeah, without having to have the bubbling things there either. What is it that's literally in Luis's hand?
It's a torn banknote.
It's
It's
a
a
piece of
corner.
the banknote.
Yeah, it's a piece of it.
Yeah, I think that you might want to just make that a jagged piece or something. It can
Okay.
stay the same size, but I think we want, for those who are dealing with, that reality of it was that it was almost concealed. I find it, so it's something that is only part of something, and I think I would represent that there,
Okay.
torn edge on that. Go on, others, this is good stuff, but there is more to say.
I really appreciate how you change things in your scene 1. I got from your first, well, one, I really appreciate the perspective. I think it looks really nice. I think it's balanced too. And at first, I didn't know what the shapes were in the beginning. And this just looks really nice, and I appreciate the colors you chose to represent different meanings. So I think it looks really nice.
Thank you. Liz?
Really subtle thing, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but like that red line that cuts is like the bottom, I think that works really well. Just because it
Mhm.
doesn't make his suit blend in with that
Yep.
edge,
Yeah,
so that was, I
Yeah,
noticed that.
originally I had it white, but with the, there's white on his suit as well, and there's white on the objects in the room, so I thought that red was the best way to represent that. Sam?
Maybe with this one, change the color of the counter, just like switch the shadows and the color of the counter,
Okay.
because the white shadows, it's not really, you never get a shadow that's white.
Right.
So it's kind of, just by looking at it, you can't really tell what exactly is going on. So if you had it the other way, where you had the white shelf with a dark shadow, then it would clearly be able to tell, like, that's the shadow of the object.
Yeah. Although I can understand that there is, there's some power here to the sense that we're like we're being guided back to Poirot and remembering it's him who's figuring out the clue. And if you do invert that, I think I might draw us just a tad closer in. I don't know.
2, 4, 0.
So, yeah, I just don't know. You have to, I guess you're gonna have to make this
Take away
decision.
from the
You've made a lot of very good decisions here. I can see the argument that the shadows really wouldn't look that way, but you're gonna have to decide what will, you know, work best for you overall, because there is something about us being drawn in that way. However, in the composition of the slide, you're using the title of it to balance things out to a certain extent. And you really want that to be not a part of the composition
Okay.
itself.
Yeah, that wasn't really intended.
No,
It's
but
kinda-
it's
kinda
what's happening.
Uh-huh.
And it may mean that we need to shift the actual scene just a little more over,
Okay.
you know, or something like
Or
that.
just add like another polish next to the two reds on the left.
Like
Mhm.
over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had something there originally. Didn't really know how to make
You
it
took
look
that
3D
out?
though. Evan?
I think that being said though, I think something that we really haven't considered is the fact that you use a lot of black background throughout all three. I'm actually a big fan of that, namely because one, we've seen a lot of like white background through a lot of different presentations, but also because black is a more, I don't know, it's a scary feeling to it. I like that it's black. I think that like inverting the colors to make the table, like the countertop white, would distract from the fact that something like very evil is here, you know? You have a red line there on the black and it's just, it's very,
It's subtle,
dominant.
but it's enough.
it is, and then you have the purple in there, which is enough to, so going back to Sam's comment about the shadows, even though you have the white like cylinders and the white shadows, I think that it's pretty obvious like what you're going for, and by changing that one to the purple and the purple background, I just think it's great compositional, maybe the white up from the scene one, possibly, but I think that, you know, looking at this piece, it's very well thought out. Done a really good job.
And yeah, like with the black rooms and everything, I just kind of wanted to make it look like you really have to look for the clues, and because everything's kind of dark going on the cruise. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Emily?
I think if you do when you do take the scene thing out, the words up there, you could maybe put like a pearl necklace, because that is part of the mystery, and that would like add some white there. Like that would-
Put a necklace where?
just like where the scene one is, somewhere in that area, put like a pearl necklace maybe, because that is like part of the mystery in a way. And so she
Yeah,
is rich,
but
she
then-
might have.
What is somebody doing?
I think it might distract us from what's really going on here. Because to me, the moment we're putting together here is that Poirot has just found a clue. And the clue he's found doesn't really have anything to do with the necklace, and it might prove a distraction. Other questions or suggestions or comments? I think this is very well done. And some tweaking, but very well done.